So I'm going to talk about metaprogramming, less fun metaprogramming. This is more kind of the boring metaprogramming. I like to think of this as making simple problems hard enough to still be something where you can get promoted. It's very important, especially in our current economy, that our jobs remain hard enough that we cannot automate them. And thanks to the magic of metaprogramming, you too can make your job really complicated. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll talk a tiny little bit about who I am. Our other goal besides getting promoted and not being replaced with ChatGPT is to save ourselves from legacy software. And our primary challenge for us to overcome is our own laziness as a profession. I'm lazy. It's why I became a programmer, that and many other things. And our tools are terrible. And if you look too closely, you will find a Perl script, but do not worry, I will not inflict Perl on you today. If you want to find the Perl script, come and talk to me later, and we can be sad together. Okay. Yeah, and so we will triumph, but only if we scope our goals down enough. This is a constant battle that I face, wherein my boss keeps trying to add them back after I take them out. It's very annoying. But yeah, I'm Holden. My pronouns are she or her. I've been at a bunch of different companies, including Foursquare. Right now, I am at Netflix. The data organization at Netflix is hiring. Not a lot of roles, but some, and remote friendly. Oh, right. Also, very important. My views may differ from that of my employer. My style certainly differs from that of my employer. And yeah, we'll go from there. So it's also Pride Month. I'm trans, queer, Canadian. I finally have a green card. I'm really, really happy. It took like a decade, but now it is slightly harder to kick me out of this place. So that's really awesome. And I'm part of the broader leather community. We always get pushed to the back of the Pride Parade because it's not the family-friendly part. But you know, yeah, they're good folks. Okay. So you probably are familiar with metaprogramming, but just in case you're not, that's totally cool. We're going to write software that writes our software, or more accurately, we're going to write software that manipulates our existing software in our case. Metaprogramming can be as simple as that Perl script I was referencing, which runs a regular expression on your code. You are writing software, which is writing software. And it's totally cool. If you haven't done metaprogramming before, that's awesome. And if you have, you might find this a little less exciting, but that's okay too, because I have a lot of pictures in the right-hand corner that you can pay attention to instead. So why should we care about this? So for one thing, we don't get promoted for updating from Spark 2 to Spark 3. Generally, you don't get promoted for updating to current versions of software. It's just, you know, it's your job, so you should do it. But no one really cares about you, and you're stuck in the basement. And they're just like, how's it going down there? And you start saying, oh, I can't find out why this API doesn't work. And they're just like, okay, we're going to close the door and keep on walking. But if you do metaprogramming, people are like, oh, that sounds hard. Yeah, keep doing that. Looks great on a promo package. The other one is more seriously, I like money. And right now, it turns out the people who are willing to give me money want me to work on Spark. And that's great. I love working on Spark. It turns out the other problem is, though, they have really old versions of Spark. And I don't love working on really old versions of Spark, because then I have to like bust out Scala 210. And that is not my happy place. That is my sad place. I have memories. They're not good. And so I want to get us onto modern versions of Spark and Scala so that I don't have to deal with this shit. Yeah, once again, you know, all the sadness of doing it by hand. Yes, it is probably faster and will save your employer money, but that does not matter because your employer is probably not in this talk. And if my employer is in this talk, while this is true for other companies, this is certainly for us, this is the best thing to do because we have just so many pipelines. And instead we can write cool tools, and we can be like my dog and enjoy the river. He doesn't actually like swimming, so we had to put him on a little floaty board in the river so that he'd actually go in the water with us. But the other thing is like, yeah, it's really inefficient to write all of these tools, but we can use the magic of sharing. Is anyone Canadian here? That is me. Okay, never mind. So there is a Canadian, essentially the version of Scouts for young kids in Canada is called Beavers. And the motto of Beavers is sharing, 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 right? So open source software makes our life better, just like we were taught if you grew up in Canada when you were about 6 years old. And so we're going to do that. My dog still does need to learn how to share, though. So that's good. Okay. So we can do this, and we don't have to only do it in Scala. I only think we're going to really talk about Scala and maybe a little bit of SQL today. But we can do this in other languages too, right? Those terrible Perl scripts, they don't care what language they're running on. Now, to be fair, you will care because you have written Perl and summoned the devil. But, you know, there's Python metaprogramming tool, right? And yeah, that's cool. So we're going to use ScalaFix. How many people here are familiar with ScalaFix? Okay, well, the Scala Center, folks, is not the biggest surprise in the world. But for those of you who aren't, it's really, really cool. And it lets you write things that are much better and even more maintainable than Perl scripts for transforming your code. Now, that is a low bar, but I am pleased to say that it exceeds that low bar. And so here, what we've got is we've got some really janky symbol matchers, and we're looking for people who are calling the JSON method on the data frame reader in, I want to say, like Spark 2.1, because we've changed the type signature on it a little bit. And we now have to actually specify these encoders when you're doing this on top of an RDD. So we also have this utils RDD matcher, which matches when on the parameter types when we're passing in an RDD to this legacy function. And it's like, oh, cool, you are calling this on an RDD, and we need to tell it like what the encoder is, and everything will be happy. And also, if we have an import of the encoders, add my encoder import. Otherwise, you know, if they're calling JSON on this and it's like a regular thing, like a file path or something, it's fine. We don't have to patch this code. So just do nothing. Return patch empty. And then here we recurse on a tree because everyone loves recursing on trees. Yay! Okay. Okay, so you probably care less about Python, but we can do similar things in Python, except we don't have types. So that kind of sucks. I really like the Python data community. It's amazing. I wish their rewrite tools had types. They don't really integrate with MyPy in the way that I would hope. So we are like slightly better than regular expression level in Python, but like still not really all that far ahead. We're just saying like, hey, if someone's got a function called 2degrees, let's swap it with degrees. So we won't replace any arbitrary string with degrees, but we'll replace any function call. And it turns out there's this inconvenient thing where Spark and Pandas share a lot of the like API names, but semantically do not agree. So when we tried to make this tool for Python, I succeeded in delegating that business. Great success. Shout out to the Python track lead. And I'm sorry. Okay. And now SQL. SQL is actually, for all of its sadness, pretty cool. In part because like it's a comparatively simple language, right? And there are a whole bunch of tools for it. Once again, we don't have like great type information present, but we don't have the same like API sadness. And so we can write like simple rules here. This one, we changed the semantics around char versus string types because we hate ourselves and we wanted to make our upgrades painful. And so we have to do some things when we find this char type. Life is sad, and we just essentially replace it with string. Don't worry. Okay. Now, you might be going like, Holden, that sounds amazing. Are there any downsides to building these cool tools? And yes, indeed, we could get really, really deprecation happy if we built amazing migration tools. Based on how painful it is to build migration tools, I do not think we're going to get there. So I'm not too worried about this, But if you've ever wondered why Google deprecates a whole bunch of things and just does not seem to care, there is a fantastic blog post about what happens when you make your internal tooling so much better than the tooling available to your customers. It's a great read, really depressing. I don't work there anymore, but I will probably try and work there again in the future. So, y'all are still great. Cool. Okay, so that's cool. Okay, we looked at like some pretty trivial things. What does this look like when we try and run it? What kind of changes do we get? So, and we can see this is from October 14th, 2020. Very classy PR. And if we go and look at these 77 files changed, okay, yeah. There's a bunch of things where we're just deleting a whole bunch of code that I didn't need anymore. Oh, wait. Sorry. I want to get the individual commit. Here we go. We're going to go to the first thing. So here, the first thing that we did is we applied the existing Scala fixes, which added a bunch of type information, which I really should have put in there, but I'm a lazy person. And then we went ahead and I had some automated thing to update our SQL constructor, all kinds of fun. I don't know why we changed that, but like relatively simple things, but we don't have to do it. Specifically, we don't have to do it about the 20 or so thousand times that I think I've found in my code base. And so that's cool, right? It's simple. We could actually accomplish this with a Perl script. We just hate ourselves in the morning. But I'm used to that too. So, okay, cool. So that's great. That's like Holden's sample, like that's the Spark testing base project. What about like a more real project? So it turns out that those are hard to share because of reasons, but I do have a really shady demo, which while still not a real project, is more interesting than Spark testing base. So we are going to run this sketchy demo and we're going to hope it works. And I'm ignore that. Okay. Sorry, I have a lot of screens. Yeah, there we go. Okay, end-to-end demo Scala. This is probably the right directory. Okay, and so we can see that I am not cheating, maybe. I'm going to run this shell script called run demo. Fantastic. Okay, and so it starts off by deleting things and deleting my test table, which I called fart table, because I bring myself great joy. And so what this relatively simple script does, and we'll go and bring this up. Sorry. Oh, it wants to re-import SBT changes. So we're going to go Spark demo project. Yes, there we go. Okay. Scala, run demo. Okay. It does like a bunch of annoying things around sort of like setting up the environment, getting an old version of Spark, getting a new version of Spark, deleting tables, making new tables so that we can run our tests. And then it actually, it's going to take a while longer. It says what it's doing. I did say I was going to hide the Perl from you, and that is true. I do use a Python script to rewrite the build file because I'm lazy and I couldn't figure out a nice way to rewrite the build file automatically. There probably is a better way, but we take our build file and we rewrite it. And the main thing that we do is we add our collection of Scala fix rules, and then we go ahead and we apply them. Okay. So it says like, hey, this is what I did. I added Scala fix, and I added these Scala fix rules. Press enter to continue. Now we're going to run Scala fix. It's totally, probably, maybe going to work. I did run this demo like 20 minutes ago, so if it's broken, I'm going to be really sad. Very exciting. So what do people like to do while waiting for software to build? I don't have any foam swords with me. Oh, there were foam swords in the Foursquare office. They took them away from me, though, after the incident with the foam swords. Okay, so here, there we go. Okay, we can tell this is a real demo because it's doing a bunch of printlns. And so that's how we know that this is definitely a real demo and not fake. And so the first thing that it's done is it's applied sort of the automatic Scala fix rules. I made a bunch of other Scala fix rules for things that I was like, I could fix this the right way, or I could just warn the user. And those started to get a lot more appealing after I wrote the first two rules. And so here we see like, okay, you called group by key, which an inconveniently large number of people do. It turns out people want to group their data by key for whatever reason. And also for whatever reason, we changed the meaning of that API. Like for the better, right? Like this reference to count now, like it was a little ambiguous before, but you know, frustratingly common. But I'm lazy, and so I didn't actually fix this the right way. I just told people like, hey, here's something wrong. You go fix it. And this is better than the alternative because the alternative is this stuff is not typed and it gets resolved at runtime. So here we get to find out about it before production goes down. And that increases the chances of me not getting fired by at least 10%. Okay, whatever. There's a bunch of warnings. We'll just press enter and skip them all. Great. Okay, cool. Now it's going to go ahead and like kick off two versions of the pipeline for comparison purposes, but that's going to take a minute because it's actually running on my laptop rather than anywhere else. So we'll just go and take a quick peek at the code rewrite really quickly. So everyone's favorite, word count. Yeah. No? Okay. Whatever. Fine. So here we have word count, and we intentionally call a bunch of deprecated functions that are removed in Spark 3. Oh yeah, sure. How's this? Okay, rockin'. Thank you. Yeah, so we intentionally call things that are removed in Spark 3. Right, we can't do things like this anymore. So, now we're going to look at the Spark 3 version of this that has been automatically rewritten. And I'm going to hope that it actually did what I wanted it to do. Okay. And it has, once again, done these like relatively simple things. It's done these automatic rewrites for us. And that's kind of cool, right? I didn't have to do that. I did, admittedly, in saving this like 30 seconds, take me the better part of a day. But who among us has not spent a day to save upwards of tens of seconds? Okay. Great. Okay, so what does the future hold? We should add a bunch more rules, and there actually is. There's a whole bunch more rules than when I made this back in 2020. Let's go here. If I zoom in, it looks more impressive. Okay, but yeah, so we have a bunch of rules for migrating different broken things in Spark, and that's kind of cool, right? Yay. But we should still add more, and maybe one of the ones, and this is one of the ones which I'm both like excited about and a little bit terrified about, is trying to rewrite inline SQL. How many people here use Spark? Have you ever written inline SQL inside of your Spark? Okay, I'm getting head nods, but no one's willing to raise their hand because they're just like, I do not want you to know. And that's fine. That's fine. I don't want people to know either, but I'm not very good at keeping secrets. So it turns out, though, like we have a lot of people who have written inline SQL inside of their Scala Spark because it's just so convenient, right? The problem is we made a bunch of SQL API changes as well, and we should probably fix those too. Now, that being said, I'm lazy, so I'm not going to like rebuild that from the ground up. I'm going to do it in the classic Unix fashion, which is the fancy way of saying I'm going to write it out to a file and call a shell script on it. Oh yeah. The only problem is people tend to use templates, and those get real annoying. And if you want to solve that problem, I did mention that my organization was hiring. Okay. We could go through the rules. If you're interested, though, just go check it out yourself. I'm not going to go through a GitHub with us together today. Another important thing is like, how do we know if this stuff worked? And that's a really good question, right? And so here we ran a quality demo, and we had 2 versions of our pipeline, and we actually produced 2 separate sets of results, and then we compared them afterwards. And we did this using the write audit publish pattern of Iceberg, but we just skipped the publishing step. So we write and we audit, and then we don't publish. Unless everything looks okay and the new results are the same as the old results. Then I guess we could publish. But like, it's important to not just like upgrade and then run in prod. That tends to result in sad people and pagers going off. And I have a pager, so I don't like that. And there's a whole bunch of different things to do. My current pipeline to do this comparison is called domagic.py. So you should probably do something better than domagic.py. We are iterating on something that does not involve a random Python file that I kind of wrote in the back of a conference once. And we're going to make something real good. And I'm really excited about that, but it's not ready yet. But domagic.py gives you an idea of how to do this. Okay, so maybe you're like, this sounds awesome, almost as awesome as vending machines in Japan. How do I convince my boss? So there's 2 things that we need to convince our employers about. One is the need to upgrade, and the other is that the way to upgrade is by spending ridiculous amounts of time making automated rules to save tens of seconds. So the need to upgrade is great. Security is a fantastic reason to upgrade because no one wants to be the one who's responsible for losing your company's data. So that's a great reason to upgrade. Performance is even better nowadays. People don't want to give all of their money to Jeff Bezos anymore. It's not cool anymore. VCs want you to spend less money and get more revenue. Super weird. But we can upgrade to new versions of tools and do things more efficiently. And if that's not enough, maybe, you work somewhere where money is not a concern. If so, like, let me know. But you can always be like, hey, do you want to do AI? Yeah, you need Spark 3 to do AI. And if you believe that, oh yeah. No, more seriously, there's a whole bunch of really cool tools to do better AI and ML stuff in Spark 3. Like a whole bunch of stuff is a lot better there. The scheduler got improved a lot. And maybe you can use that to convince your boss. Here's how we save money. Once again, do not try and reproduce these benchmarks. They've already provided us with the correct answer. Reproducing benchmarks can only lead to sadness. Okay, right. The other one is like, eventually everything will go away and break, and then you don't want to be the next Southwest Airlines, who just can't do anything for about a week because no one knows how it works anymore, and the software that you're using is written in COBOL. Right, okay. Okay, the other one is, how do we convince our employers that we should use metaprogramming to solve these problems, right? So honestly, if you have like less than 5 pipelines, it's going to be a tough sell, right? Like, you're going to go to your boss and be like, hey, I should write a whole bunch of migration rules. And they'll be like, what about if you just migrated that? And I don't have a real good answer for that. The other one is, you could be like, we could do this in the open source. And then if we do that, maybe other people will join. And then overall, it won't be that bad that we spend all this time doing upgrade rules. I've tried that one pretty successfully, as you can see from how much time I've spent on this. And the other one is like easier future upgrades, right? Like if we learn how to do this now, if we automate some of our upgrades today, in the future, we might not hate ourselves. Not a guarantee. Okay. In conclusion, the good news is everything is still broken and we still have jobs. The bad news is everything is still broken and we still have jobs. The excellent news is my dog is incredibly cute. This is Professor Timbit. I love him more than programming. Also, if you're like, you know what, this sounds incredibly terrible, let's share it with children. Then I have great news for you about my next project, distributed computing for kids. If you've ever said to yourself, I really want the neighbor's children's coming up to me and asking me about out-of-memory exceptions, then I encourage you to go to distributedcomputingforkids.com and give me your email address because the PDF is almost kind of finished. Based on early feedback, we've replaced the gnomes that looked like they were on acid with these gnomes who look like they're from San Francisco, but not on drugs. And so I think this is a great improvement. Okay, so that's all I had.
Well, let's repeat the question for what? Yeah, so recently there was a discussion about Apache Spark 4. And so it's a good time to start thinking about whether you have statistics and rate splits into Spark 4. Because I'll go for your rabbit, but in think about scarce 2 are that and then he asked to run redundancies. And you can take about statistics through ways of projects, and then it goes and makes the PRs problem that.
It's so cool. Okay, so the question was essentially there's been talk about Spark 4, and maybe this is a good time to think about integrating some of this stuff into the Spark project itself so that we can take advantage of Scala Steward, which is an amazing project that automates upgrades for libraries for people in the Scala ecosystem. And I think that's totally true. I think it's going to be a really tough sell to people. Consensus-driven software development is better than many alternatives, but adding new things like this can be really hard because then people, in my experience, are like really resistive to adding this stuff. Like I maintain a project called Spark Testing Base, which I tried to get into Spark, right? And I'm a committer now, and I still haven't succeeded at getting Spark's testing libraries merged into Spark. So I think you're right. And I think in an ideal world, yeah, we would put some of the stuff inside of Spark itself. And I might just be too pessimistic because I've been around for too long. But I will try. It is on my list of things to try and convince people of. And I would love to be wrong. I really hope I'm wrong.